You this morning. I speak to people in both Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They say this feels very different from the sort of well-telegraphed, somewhat scripted tit-for-tat operations between Israel and Iran last year. And we are seeing the fallout for civilians. Just describe the mood there on the ground, if you will, before we talk about the objectives here by Benjamin Netanyahu and his Israeli military.
Becky, the mood in Israel right now is one of great trepidation. On the one hand, there are definitely the successes that Israel has seen so far in its battle against Iran to attempts to neutralize the nuclear program. Israel now has aerial sovereignty or superiority over Iranian airspace and able to do what it needs to get done. But at the same time, these missile attacks are continuing and they are exacting a great toll on Israel. We had 4 women who were killed in an Israeli Arab town in northern Israel overnight, a village called Tamra, mother, 2 of her children, and a relative. And now there's another 4 people or 6 people killed in a building that was hit in Bat Yam, just south of Tel Aviv, many more who are still missing in that building. So these missile attacks are exacting a toll, and that's going to bite away or chip away at Israelis', I would say, patience and tolerance for this to continue for a very long time.
What do you make of what you are hearing from the Prime Minister, from the army chiefs, from the military infrastructure? And what's your perception about what the objectives are here and what happens next?
Israel is, I think, highly focused on the primary goal here in this mission, which is to neutralize and set back for as long as possible Iran's nuclear program and nuclear infrastructure. Everything we've seen until now, the focus has been on, I would say, 2 other categories alongside Iran's nuclear facilities. There was the military command, the IRGC command, some, of course, the nuclear scientists, as well as the surface-to-surface missile systems, the launchers, the ballistic missiles that are now being launched into Israel to try to degrade and take away from Iran's ability to attack. And, of course, the radar and the surface-to-air missile system. So Israel has now pretty much completed those later categories, the ones of the missile, surface-to-air missile and the radar. This is to be able to now have that superiority over Iranian airspace to focus on the nuclear installations. That's now the main focus of the operation. Of course, they're going to continue trying to degrade the ballistic missiles to save lives in Israel. But ultimately, this is about setting back Iran's nuclear program. And really, Becky, the question is, how long will it be able to do that for?
Democratic Representative Seth Moulton in the United States has said, and I quote, that the US has real concerns about supporting strikes on Iran by Israel. And we are hearing MAGA voices on the opposing side, on the right, also concerned about any US involvement in support of Israel. What do you think the expectations are at this point from the Israeli government? And how do you read the relationship at present? What need is there at this point for involvement by the US from their perspective?
Look, from Israel's perspective, if America were to get involved here and to, I would say, allocate resources like B-2 bombers and other capabilities to finish off the Iranian nuclear infrastructure, this could be done within just a couple of hours. You know that like I do, Becky. The Americans have superior capabilities to what the Israeli Air Force has and what they could bring down on facilities like Fordo or the lower chambers at the Natanz enrichment facility or at Isfahan, where they have the main stockpiles of the fuel that they've already enriched, the uranium they've enriched. But I think that absent that or minus that, it would be for the Americans to provide Israel with 2 key resources. Number one, additional weapons that it might need, whether it's air-to-surface bombs, bunker buster bombs that it might need, and interceptors that it needs to continue to defend itself, and the THAAD system that the Americans have already put throughout the region to protect Israel. But then the second resource, Becky, is time. Give Israel time to get the mission done.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because President Trump said in a Truth Social post, quote, the US had nothing to do with the attack on Iran, but he can, quote, easily get a deal done between Iran and Israel. And he's been very vocal about that diplomatic track, that off-ramp that he says still exists. And whilst he described the initial strikes by Israel on Iran on Friday morning as very successful and looked, certainly the tone was one of support to a degree. What we have seen when we think about the objectives that Israel has, the neutralization of the nuclear program and the neutralization of the ballistic missiles stockpile, it's clear that when you step back, nothing has really changed. Today, Iran still has a nuclear infrastructure, and we have clearly seen overnight that it not only has a ballistic missile stockpile, but a new and different one, a new missile that is maneuverable around, for example, the THAAD system. So I'll just leave this interview, if I can, with your sort of brief concluding thoughts as we look forward into the hours to come.
And what I will say, Becky, on that point, which is so true, is that time is limited, and therefore Israel's going to have to move fast and going to have to do what it can to get as much damage as possible done to Iran's nuclear program. But this is still going to continue for several days. It's not over. The last 2 days show us that there's still a battle, and there are still great challenges ahead to achieve and get this mission done.